If you ever interacted with somebody who just doesn't seem to have any drive, they have given up. Or if you've interacted with somebody who seems to have endless drive and energy, what you're looking at there in those two circumstances is without question a difference in the level of dopamine circulating in their system. Dopamine is what we call a neuromodulator. Neuromodulators are different than neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are involved in the dialogue between neurons, whereas neuromodulators influence the communication of many neurons in the nervous system. What this means is that dopamine release change the probability that certain neural circuits will be active and that other neural circuits will be inactive. So, how does dopamine work and what does it do? Well, first of all, it's not just about responsible for pleasure, it's responsible for motivation and drive, also for craving. Those three things are sort of the same: motivation, drive, and craving. It also controls time perception. This turns out to be important to not end up addicted to substances, but it also turns out to be very important to sustain effort and be a happy very person at long periods of time, which I think most everybody wants. Dopamine is also widely important for movement. I'll explain the neurocircuits for dopamine and mindset and dopamine and movement in a moment. But in disease like Parkinson's or Lewy body dementia, which is similar to Parkinson's in many ways, there is a depletion or death of dopamine neurons at a particular location in the brain, which leads to shaky movements, challenges in speaking, challenges in particular in initiating movement. And because dopamine is depleting elsewhere, two people with Parkinson's and Lewy body dementia also experience drops in motivation and affect, meaning mood. They tend to get depressed and so on. When those people are properly treated, they can recover some fluidity of movement, some ability to initiate movement, and almost without question, those people feel better psychologically, not just because they can move, but also because dopamine impact mood and motivation. So, what are the underlying neurocircuits? You have two main neural circuits in the brain that dopamine uses in order to exert all its effects. One mainly for movement. This is the substantia niagara dorsal striatum, and we've got this other pathway, the so-called mesocortical pathway. That's for reward, reinforcement, and motivation. Now, the other thing to understand about dopamine is that the way that dopamine is released in the brain and body can differ. There is a local release, what we call synaptic release, and then there is a volumetric release. So, volumetric release is like dumping all this dopamine out into the system. So dopamine is incredible because it can change the way that our neural circuits work at the local scale and at the very broad scale. So if I were just put a really simple message around dopamine, it would be there is a molecule in your brain and body that when released tends to make you look outside yourself, pursue things outside yourself, and to crave things outside yourself. Dopamine is a universal currency in all mammals, but especially in humans, for moving us toward goals and how much dopamine is in our system at any one time compared to how much dopamine was in our system a few minutes ago. That dictates your so called quality of life and your desire to pursue things. This is important. Your experience of life and your level of motivation and drive depends how much dopamine you have relative your recent experience. This is why, when you repeatedly engage in something that you enjoy, your threshold for enjoyment goes up and up and up.